You can hate me all you want about luring you into this video, but today we're going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is how to take care of your teeth properly. I know that at the moment there's a lot of talk about becoming her, tapping into your feminine energy, becoming the best version of yourself, but for me as a dentist, I don't think you can become any of these things if you don't take care of your teeth properly. Now, this video is really not about making you feel bad about yourself. I'm sure you're already doing a lot of things that are right, but you can see it more of a little reminder and maybe as an inspirational guide to perfectionate your oral healthcare routine. So who am I to talk about these things? I'm Cristina, I'm a dentist and I work in Dresden, Germany. The idea behind this video is because as a dentist, I tend to see wonderful girls and boys on a daily basis where it's very obvious that a lot of effort and a lot of thought goes into how they look. But then the moment I look into their mouth, I'm thinking, you can do so much better, girl. And the thing is also at the moment, or for the past years, there's been a lot of emphasis on how to become an expert when it comes to your skincare routine, how to perfectionate your makeup routine. But I feel like the thing that is almost always forgotten about is how to take care of your teeth. So I feel like whereas a lot of people are now experts when it comes to retinol and toners and facial serums and all of that, when it comes to the teeth, it's always a bit of a different story. I'm not intending to make you feel bad with this video. I think you should just use it as a little inspiration or motivation in order to also become an expert when it comes to your teeth. And make sure you watch until the end, because that's when I'm going to share the advice that I think is the one that is mostly forgotten about, yet tends to make the biggest difference. So let's start with the very basics, which is brushing your teeth. I think it is a no-brainer by now that you should be brushing your teeth at least twice a day. Once in the morning, once in the evening. Of course, you can do it more often than that, but generally speaking, I wouldn't overdo it either because you run the risk of brushing down your enamel and also irritating your gums. The more enamel comes off, the more yellow your teeth are going to be and the more sensitive they're going to be. So of course there's no holding back in terms of brushing your teeth also after every meal. However, keep in mind that the more you do it, the more you can also harm your teeth. Now let's talk about the duration. So it is recommended that you brush your teeth at least for 2 minutes every time that you brush them. And there again, don't go overboard with it. So it should be between 2 to 3 minutes. And I think a good rule of thumb is that you should have the feeling as though you cleaned all of the teeth surfaces. And in order for you to be able to do that, I think you should set those 2 to 3 minutes aside to really focus on brushing your teeth and to be mindful about it. And by that I mean, don't stare at your phone, don't watch TV, don't do something else, just really stand in front of the mirror. Use this time to be there and present in the moment in order to make sure that you brush your teeth effectively and that you don't miss any surfaces. I think what also really helps patients is when they have a system in place so that every time they brush their teeth, they're going about it in the same order. So for example, I start with the occlusal surface in the bottom left corner. Then I work on the outside, then on the inside, and then I move on to the next side. And by that, I'm hopefully doing an okay job. Let's talk about toothbrushes. That's something patients often ask about, is to whether they should use an electric toothbrush or if they should use a manual toothbrush. So far, no significant difference has been found between the effectiveness between using a manual or an electric toothbrush. What it comes down to though is that you're able to handle the toothbrush that you have chosen well, meaning that by whichever means that you use, it could as well be a stick that you found on the street, which I wouldn't recommend, but at the end, this is what it comes down to, that you're able to clean your teeth effectively with whichever device that you're choosing for yourself. Me personally, I've gotten really used to my electric toothbrush. It's a bit of an annoying device, I have to say, because it indicates whether or not I'm pushing onto my teeth too hard. And then at the end of the cleaning session, it gives me feedback. So it can leave me with a happy face, it can leave me with a star face, which means that it's super happy. And I have to say, sometimes I'm really annoyed with it because I'm thinking, ugh, I did such a good job. Why don't you see it the same way? I mean, there's drawbacks to that toothbrush as well. It's the Oral-B IO. Have you been using it? There's some clear drawbacks to that, but in general, I have to say I really like the settings and I really like the whole shebang that comes with it. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with using a manual toothbrush. The bottom line is that you should be using a brush that is soft. So don't use medium or hard bristles, because ultimately it all goes back to the enamel part of it, and you also run the risk of hurting your gums so that they move up, and therefore you're gonna have a whole bunch of different problems. Also, the way you hold your brush is super important, because one of the areas that's often being forgotten about is where the teeth border onto the marginal gingiva. So the part where the tooth transitions into the gingiva. I'm not doing a great job at explaining this in English, but I'm trying, okay? So that's an area, it's called the sulcus. That's where a lot of the bacteria can reside, and that's because we don't hold our toothbrushes properly. So what's generally recommended is to hold your toothbrush at a 45-degree angle so that you reach those spots. Often what you see in people is that they really scrub their teeth, but be gentle with them. Teeth like to be brushed gently, and you should go about it in a circular motion, and also you should give every tooth surface enough attention. Next, we're going to talk about toothpaste, and this is where things can become a little bit emotional, so I'm not going to go into it in full active ingredient detail. In general, if you're using toothpaste or not doesn't really actually matter, because what is important about brushing your teeth is actually only the manual part of it, meaning your toothbrush removing the plaque that has accumulated on your teeth. And any brush, whether or not you're using toothpaste, is going to be able to do that. However, imagine brushing your teeth without toothpaste. I don't think I could actually do it, to be honest. When it comes to toothpaste, it is important that you find a toothpaste that you like, that also brings you joy, and that makes you motivated to brush your teeth. There's really no point in using toothpaste that you absolutely hate, because then you're going to despise the whole experience all in all. And I mean, at this point, whichever supermarket you go to usually tends to have a great variety of different toothpastes. I have a few here, and I mean, I'm a dentist, so I like to use different ones, or I like to try different ones. And generally when I go abroad or when I'm on holiday, I look into the supermarkets and see what kind of toothpaste are available. As I said before, everybody these days that is interested in, skincare has the tendency to be a little expert into, what active ingredients can do and whatnot. And I feel there's so many great products that can be bought for your skin. But as I said in the beginning of the video, I always feel like your teeth and, the oral cavum are sort of left out of the equation, which can be a little bit frustrating or a bit sad. And so I was happy to, this is like a high-end toothpaste brand. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. I believe that it is actually Swedish, of course, because everything great and fancy always tends to be from Sweden or from any other northern country. Finland. I don't even remember what these cost, maybe 12 euros or something, and it's a relatively small package. And I get it, not everybody needs to spend I don't know how many euros on a fancy toothpaste. However, I think the development towards making people aware that there's nice things that can be bought for your teeth are also existing, and maybe also worthwhile investing if they bring you joy and therefore make you stick to your oral healthcare routine more effectively. So give these a try. I didn't think they were too bad, or I actually kind of like the experience of using them. Generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend going for charcoal options or any other whitening toothpaste, though you can see I'm not really sticking to my rules either. Just bear in mind that these tend to be more abrasive, and especially the charcoal ones, and in the end you're not going to get whiter teeth from them. So keep that in mind. Okay, now let's come to the last point, and as I promised, I think that's the point that makes or breaks your oral healthcare routine. And you're gonna hate me for saying this, but it's flossing. Of course it's flossing. What did you think? From me, what I see on a daily basis is that the thing that gets neglected the most is flossing. And I'm a curious person, so I like to ask why that is. Maybe you can enlighten me also in the comments. It's just always this awkward silence that creeps in once you ask your patients if they're flossing on a regular basis, and then, you can see the blushing, the not keeping eye contact anymore, the maybe pulling in the chin a little bit and being like, yeah, I floss on a daily basis. But it's just, come on, I know that you're not flossing. Your whole body language screams it at me, and I can also see it from your gums. So why is that? I think it's because flossing is always seen as something elitist that only healthcare freaks do. But it's really not that, because as I kept emphasizing in this video, brushing your teeth is all about reaching all of the surfaces. And the surfaces that you're never, ever, 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 ever going to be reaching with a conventional toothbrush is the surfaces between the teeth. So basically on your adjacent teeth you have two surfaces that are never being touched by any sort of dental device unless we come in with a drill, because what's happening in those cases is that you're developing a cavity, and that cavity is usually spotted only if an x-ray is being taken and or if it's too late and you're already at a point where you need a root canal. Maybe you've had a root canal before. I love root canals from a practitioner point of view. I think it's a super fascinating area. However, as a patient, I don't think that it's that nice. And all you need to do in order to prevent that is to take some floss and floss once a day. I think another reason as to why people usually forego flossing is because they don't know why they should be doing this, and I feel super passionate about flossing, so I'm sure I'm gonna make a video that is only dedicated to flossing alone. But it's really ultimately about the fact that you're not going to reach between your teeth with a conventional toothbrush, and therefore all kinds of plaque is accumulating, and where there's plaque there's bacteria, and those bacteria will be more than happy to be eating away on your tooth structure and to cause you pain ultimately. Also, I don't know how about you, but for example, if I don't floss daily, I do floss daily. I really do floss daily. It's one of the things that I always do. I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm one of these people. However, if, for example, I've eaten my breakfast and then I go about my day and then I floss at a later point, like, first of all the stuff that I'm able to pull out there is just beyond. And also, if you really need a bit of motivation, is to smell the floss after you've been using it and then think about what it's like in your mouth. It's not that pleasant. And you want to be that girl, and you want to become her, and you want to tap into your feminine energy. And if your mouth is filled with junk, that's not going to happen. My humble opinion. Also, you feel so good about yourself. You feel such a sense of general superiority, because when you talk to people, you can be like, oh, by the way, have you flossed today? What, you don't floss? Really? And then people will be like, well, do you floss? And you can be like, yeah, I floss on a daily basis, don't you? And then you can give them the whole lecture, and everybody is going to think you're super smart. And isn't that part of becoming her? Or maybe I've completely misunderstood the whole concept. I'm sure by now I've completely destroyed the algorithm for my channel, because the algorithm will be like, okay, so you've talked about corporate, you've talked about regrets in your 20s, you've talked about your experience in dental school, you've talked about leaving Finland, and now this? I don't care, the algorithm just has to deal with it, and I do hope you got something out of it. Let me know in the comments below if you did, if there's been any clue of enlightenment. I hope so. Let me know if you floss on a daily basis, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye!